Welcome to Gameonysus Weekly, your one-stop shop for video game news, keeping up with the biggest stories so you don't have to. I'm your host, Janet Garcia, and today we're talking about Far Cry 6 being political, Team Asobi joining PlayStation Studios, and God of War's delay. All these stories and so much more on today's episode. First up, Far Cry 6 is political. This comes over from the official Ubisoft news post where Navid Kavari, Far Cry 6's narrative director, took to the Ubisoft blog to state the game is, in fact, political. This is pretty shocking given Ubisoft's rich history of making political games that they claim are not political, and while this is a pretty low bar to hit, I think it's good that they did clarify this aspect of the game, so let's dig into a bit of what the actual post says. Our story is political. A story about a modern revolution must be. There are hard, relevant discussions in Far Cry 6 about the conditions that led to the rise of fascism in a nation, the costs of imperialism, forced labor, the need for free and fair elections, LGBTQ+ rights, and more within the context of Yara, a fictional island in the Caribbean. My goal was to empower our team to be fearless in the story we were telling, and we worked incredibly hard to do this over the last 5 years. We also tried to be very careful about how we approached our inspirations, which include Cuba, but also other countries around the world that have experienced political revolutions in their histories. In our approach, we made sure to seek creators and collaborators for our team who can speak personally to the history and cultures of the regions we were inspired by. They then detail their research before jumping to this next part, which is to say, quote, if anyone is seeking a simplified binary political statement specifically on the current political climate in Cuba, they won't find it. And now I'm going to jump down to the last of this post, which ends with this. What players will find is a story that's point of view attempts to capture the political complexity of a modern, present-day revolution within a fictional context. We have attempted to tell a story with action, adventure, and heart, but that also isn't afraid to ask hard questions. Far Cry is a brand that in its DNA seeks to have mature, complex themes balanced with levity and humor. One doesn't exist without the other, and we have attempted to achieve this balance with care. My only hope is that we are willing to let the story speak for itself first before forming hard opinions on its political reflections. Personally, I don't necessarily think this means the story will be more or less serious than expected, but again, it's nice for there to finally be an acknowledgement of the politics. And I do want to take this time to remind folks what I mean when I say politics, because so often I think it's looked at as solely a political leaning, opinions on specific policy, or to use more charged phrasing, an agenda. But really, most things in life are political in the fact that they are interacting and engaging with or supporting or subverting a number of ideologies and or social constructs. But to be less wordy with it, pretty much everything is political the same way that everything could be considered art. It's a really open-ended category. So I am glad to see games, especially games that are so clearly political in nature, finally own that label and just start to discuss what that means for them and the art that they're trying to create. I think the more we normalize the existence of politics in games, the harder it'll be for people to say, oh, you're, reaching with this. You shouldn't make this political. I don't want politics in my games, et cetera, because, I think we're still going to see that conversation forever, but it's nice to slowly start to get on the same page with, maybe we can't agree on the messages that need to be sent or how they should be said, but we can at least agree that things are being said, that we are having these discussions, and that they're a natural part of the creative process. And speaking of the creative process, Team Asobi joins PlayStation Studios. And they also have a new logo to go with it. This came over from the PlayStation blog in an announcement post. And for those who may not know or need a refresher, this is the team behind Astrobot Rescue Mission and Astro's Playroom. But the elephant in the room is the fact that this new studio is just a part of the remains of Japan Studio, which got reorganized around this team. This isn't to discount the excitement over it or the way that Team Asobi will surely grow and is, of course, growing based on one logic to this post, the announcement, the things they have planned into its own thing. So it's more like an allow me to reintroduce myself moment than anything else. On the PlayStation blog, they wrote, at the heart, our philosophy revolves around that quintessential joy in play, be it through pixel-precise character controls, exploiting a cool new controller in surprising ways, or packaging humorous animations in every nook and cranny. This is the stuff that excites us. So hopefully we get more from Astro because wow, that PSVR game is just one of the best VR games I've ever played and absolutely up there for one of the best platformers I've ever played straight up. Even taking the VR aspect out of it. And Astro's Playroom, you know, talk about joyous and also impressive as a tech demo for what the DualSense can do. I really would love to see more from Astro. I want to see Astro become a franchise, probably more than anything else that could excite me from this team. However, I will say that I do have a really strong appreciation for the new and branching out and also creating a more varied identity, not pigeonholing themselves into just being the Astro developer if that's not what they're interested in doing. Again, always about what the team is most interested in pursuing for me. So I'd also, you know, like to see them do something new, and I'd be really excited for what comes next from this team, whether it is more Astro stuff or just something new entirely. I think they are so talented, and man, I just absolutely adore Astro as a concept, and just we need more platformers too, just in the space in general. So hell yeah, excited about this, but again, it's sort of already a thing. It's not really new information. It's almost just kind of repackaged and definitely a reminder of what went down with Japan Studios, which is a little bit of a bummer, but hopefully cool things come from this team. And speaking of the PlayStation blog, the Days Gone developers are working on a brand new IP. This comes from a Q&A with Herman Hulst, the head of PlayStation Studios, and this is a post we're going to be coming back to later when we talk about God of War, but let's stick to the topic at hand for now. Hulst was asked, how important is new IP for PlayStation Studios, to which he answered, new IP is incredibly important to us. New IP is the lifeblood of gaming. But new IP is just one aspect of our strategy. Ultimately, I want PlayStation Studios to be fiercely daring, to take risks. I want us to continue to embrace the legacy of PlayStation, pushing the boundaries of gaming, keep making games that matter, games that probably wouldn't have been made anywhere else. As you know, Bend Studio is working on a very exciting new IP that they're very passionate about. They're building on the deep open world systems that they developed with Days Gone, so I'm really happy for Bend Studio. Again, y'all know I am not a Days Gone fan, but I do think it had good ideas and that a sequel would have had that potential to polish the things and take the execution from being just okay to something good or maybe even great. Of course, we know from a story a few weeks ago that the sequel to Days Gone was not approved, hence this new IP that Bend is working on instead. And honestly, I am looking forward to this. While I do stand by my original support of a Days Gone sequel, since I wasn't a fan of Days Gone to begin with, I probably am more likely to enjoy this than whatever a sequel would have been. So the idea of them working on something new entirely, I'm for it. We can pretty safely say it's open world based on Hulst's statements. As far as some of the systems, though, I'm not really sure what systems he's specifically referring to. I doubt it's going to be more zombie stuff, so I don't really see how the horde mechanic would play a role. I'm thinking it's more of a general map and mission structure thing. Maybe we'll see different encampments, customization systems, like how in Days Gone you have a bike that you can upgrade and that you need to fill with gas and ride around in and maintain. So that's the only thing that I could see kind of getting pulled over from what foundation Days Gone laid. But it is interesting to think of a Days Gone base, but with something that isn't Days Gone. It's a pretty traditional and formulaic structure, so I feel like it could really be anything. I don't think that's too much of an indicator, but hopefully some of the things that were good in Days Gone we see again in whatever this new IP ends up being. And speaking of new games, Valorant Mobile is going to be a thing. This comes over from Polygon, who spoke to executive producer Anna Donlin, who discussed how the team got to this point. Saying, for us, whatever you get out of playing on PC, you should get out of playing Valorant on mobile, but we have to recognize that the mobile player need is different. And what those differences are remain to be seen, but with no plans for crossplay between the two versions, it's clear they're intended to be two different games for two different markets. Quote, we're not trying to convert Valorant PC players into Valorant mobile players or vice versa. We're absolutely just as committed to keeping the PC experience at the quality level it is or higher, and we're not going to compromise it in order to address the mobile market. So we do know this will mostly be its own thing, but it's unclear if it'll have like unique game modes, how much the current skills sort of transfer over, and vice versa. It seems difficult to make something familiar enough that it has the same name and is in generally the same universe and has the same kind of core, but it's different enough that it is creating its own market and isn't transferring player bases from one to the other inherently. But then again, that is kind of the challenge of these types of mobile games, and we've seen plenty of games do it, obviously with varying success. And of course, this makes plenty of business sense. Fortnite Mobile has been around for years. We have games like PUBG Mobile, Call of Duty Mobile, and Riot themselves already made League of Legends Wild Rift, which is their mobile version of League of Legends. So this isn't shocking, but it is definitely a notable thing, especially as the game celebrates its 1-year anniversary. And speaking of celebrating milestones, Nintendo is opening a gallery museum. Essentially, they're turning an old factory that's no longer in use into a museum showcasing the product line throughout the years. The facility, tentatively named Nintendo Gallery, is where Nintendo's historical products will be showcased, and exhibits and experiences will be available. It's expected to be completed within the 2023 fiscal year, which is the end of March 2024. Here's a bit more background on the situation from the press release. Nintendo is pleased to announce that its Nintendo Uji-Ogura plant and the land surrounding the building will be used as a new gallery to showcase the many products Nintendo has launched over its history. So this plant will be used for that, and the press release continues saying, the Nintendo Uji-Ogura plant was built in 1969 and was known as the Uji plant. The name of the facility changed to Uji-Ogura plant in 1988 after the construction, extension, and renovation of the current Uji plant. The Uji-Ogura plant has been used to manufacture both playing cards and Hanafuda cards, and it also operates as a customer service center for product repairs. Discussion of how to use the Uji-Ogura plant began after these functions were transferred to the current Uji plant in November 2016. And I think that's an awesome use for the facility. Obviously, I'm excited about this as someone that's a huge Nintendo fan, and we don't have a lot of places like this for video games. There is the Video Game History Museum in Texas, and I believe there's a few things on the East Coast as well, but not as much to check out and really dig in and just also enjoy the history of something outside of like the Nintendo World Store, which that's not really like the history of Nintendo. It's just like buying Nintendo stuff, which is still cool, and I think that's still exciting, but this is a little bit different, and it'd be interesting to see what kind of exhibits and things come out of it. And I think it has so much potential to be really interesting, and I'm really hoping that they max that out and we learn, I don't know, more about Nintendo history and it becomes more at the forefront. That's really exciting to me. And of course, if you are someone that supports history, I have the shout out Video Game History Foundation, to which I do have a bit of a bias since I am friends with the co-director, Kelsey Lewin. Shout out to Kelsey. What's up, Kelsey? You're probably listening to this now. Hi, hello. But I love this organization long before then, and it's just a fantastic organization. So I encourage you to check out what they're doing, their podcast, ways to support, because they're doing a lot of that work. So if you're someone that, if you heard this news and you are excited because you like the idea of preservation and learning about game history and celebrating game history, then I encourage you to check out this organization if you have not already. And as for the Nintendo Museum, I'll see y'all in 2024, I guess. Maybe. I have no idea when I'd be able to get over there to actually see it, but it would definitely be on my list if I was taking a trip. And let's run through some of those E3 updates, which I'm now realizing we should have come up with a good, catchy name for this segment, since it was very much a recurring theme in the lead up to E3, but that lead up's basically over, so we'll try to think of something for next year. But yeah, this is our E3 roundup section within the news segment. Starting with Nintendo finally announcing their E3 plans. And here they are. You can tune in for a Nintendo Direct June 15th at 9 a.m. PT for roughly 40 minutes of info focused exclusively on Nintendo Switch software, mostly releasing in 2021, followed by around 3 hours of Treehouse Live. This means the Switch Pro and any other hardware will not be revealed at this event, but folks have been speculating that we'll see it prior to this event, that they'll kind of get the Switch Pro announcement out of the way separately, and then do this Direct where they might talk about, you know, details in terms of game upgrades, game enhancements, if there's any exclusive stuff like that. However, I am recording this at now almost 2 p.m. PT on Sunday, and I have not heard anything official about the Switch Pro. Now, that can change at any time, because these things move fast and from the outside looking in feel fickle. But at this time, there isn't anything, and the closer we get, the more it's like, oh, is it any second or definitely not happening? And where you land on that just depends on your mood and your level of skepticism. And as far as Switch Pro stuff, I'm leaning on that they'll reveal it, because I feel like it, you know, I do believe some of the more recent rumors just based on how many people and how many reputable sources have been talking about it. But overall, my advice is to not hold any belief too firm and just wait and wait it out calmly, because we can get so many rumors, and we've gotten so many rumors over the last few years, and they've only kicked up the last few months, and they've been going wild the last few weeks. And it's all very exciting and interesting and gossipy, but the best thing to do is just kind of wait for the official confirmation. I mean, I think leaks are fun, and often they can be very accurate depending on the sourcing and a number of things, but we don't know what's going to happen with the Switch Pro, so we'll see. And back to the conference, again, it's 40 minutes on software that's mostly in 2021, which means we will probably see a few things that either don't have a date or are 2022 and beyond. And speaking of conferences, Square Enix is hosting a live stream on June 13th at 12:15 p.m. PT. We'll see a world premiere from Eidos Montreal, an update on Babylon's Fall, stuff from Marvel's Avengers, and stuff from Life is Strange True Colors. And Koch Media, which I believe that's how it's said, it's spelled Koch. They are going to be part of Summer Game Fest that's happening on June 11th, 12 p.m. PT, and they are the parent company of IPs such as Saints Row, Dead Island, Metro, The Noon Time Splitters, and so on. But before you get too excited, Deep Silver, one of the developers under Koch, wanted to temper those expectations. So they tweeted out, our parent company, Koch Media, is making an announcement as part of Summer Games Fest on June 11th. To give you a heads up, you won't see Dead Island, Saints Row, Metro, or Time Splitters there, or at any other E3 2021 event. We'll let you know when we have news to share. I will say with that, I'm like, okay, what is going to be at this event then? But sure, I'll go along for the ride. It is nice to at least know what won't be there. It does seem like there is an interesting increase in transparency that I think is purely to try and make people less angry. Because I even got that vibe from the Nintendo thing where they're like, only software. And I wonder if that's them sort of like Morse code blinking, like, stop asking about Switch Pro. Or if that means they would just reveal it before. I don't know. But either way, it is cool at least knowing this going in, and you can kind of take that off your bingo card because it's not going to happen. Something else we know ahead of time is that there will be an awards show at the end of E3. So normally, instead of having something like this, there is just companies going around to different booths and giving their awards individually. So that's normally what happens in an in-person year. And I think to make up for that, this showcase has sprung up. And the awards will be determined by a suite of editors coming from IGN, GameSpot, PC Gamer, Games Radar, IGN China, and Game Bonfire. The results will be announced during the last day of the broadcast on Tuesday, June 15th. And if you've been asking what the hell is the E3 schedule, so has everyone else, and E3 was like, here is our schedule. And they also tweeted out to sort of say, hey, we often don't know our schedule because it's determined by people that aren't us. So we're going to give you the information as we get it. We're not getting it as quickly as maybe you think we might get it, but it's slowly rolling out here. So at the time of my recording, here is what the schedule is according to the official E3 website. Saturday, June 12th, broadcast pre-show starts at 10 a.m. E3 2021 will kick off with press conferences from Ubisoft, Gearbox Entertainment, as well as a session with GamesBeat. Sunday, June 13th, broadcast pre-show starts at 8:45 a.m. PT. Microsoft's long-awaited Xbox and Bethesda game showcase will take place starting at 10 a.m. PT. Fans can also look forward to special presentations from Square Enix, the PC Gaming Show, and the Future Games Show. Warner Brothers games Back 4 Blood and 24 Entertainment will also be featured. Monday, June 14th, broadcast pre-show starts at 8 a.m. PT. Alongside press conferences from several indie developers, presentations from Mythical Games, Freedom Games, Razer, and Capcom will take place, as well as a diversity, equity, and inclusion panel from Take-Two Interactive throughout the day. Verizon and Television will also be featured, along with a session with Ven. Tuesday, June 15th, broadcast pre-show starts at 8 a.m. PT. The last day of E3 will include Nintendo's Nintendo Direct and Nintendo Treehouse Live programming starting at 9 a.m. PT. Bandai Namco, Eureka Games, and GameSpot will also have focused events, and the broadcast will round out with the official E3 2021 award show, which we just discussed. And again, some of those times list pre-shows and things, so I encourage you to look at that link and maybe parse out the things that you're most passionate about watching and making sure those individual items are on your list and that you have those slotted in your schedule. And keep in mind that there's a lot of other things happening during this E3 season that are not officially in E3, but if you're wondering what is E3, what isn't E3, that is the E3 schedule as listed by the E3 website. So happy E3, everyone. By the time the next episode of this comes out, it'll be It's kind of coming, it's supposed to come out like in the middle of E3, so I'm not really sure what I'm going to do for that. I think I'll do maybe, I might have to do a bonus episode where I have one that's just news focused and then one that's just E3 focused, because putting it all together would probably be a little bit too much. And then also we would be missing some of the announcements. A lot of the announcements, actually, because I normally do a lot of the show on Friday and Saturday, and it just happens to come out on Monday by the time, edits and early access and all that. So we'll be sort of playing that one by ear, but you can probably expect an extra episode just to tie everything in. Moving on to delays, we got a big one with God of War being pushed to 2022. This comes from that same PlayStation blog post that we were discussing earlier, in which Herman Holtz says being able to get talent into the studio was a big challenge for the year, mentioning that they've even built tiny recording studios in people's houses. He then says this: so we have currently two very big, very narrative-driven games in development, Horizon Forbidden West and the next God of War. And for both of those, they're frankly affected by access to performance capture and talent. For Horizon, we think we are on track to release this holiday season, but that isn't quite certain yet. And we're working as hard as we can to confirm that to you as soon as we can. And for God of War, the project started a little later, so we've made the decision to push that game out to next year to ensure that Santa Monica Studio can deliver the amazing God of War game that we all want to play. As far as it coming out on PS4, he had this to say: where it makes sense to develop a title for both PS4 and PS5, for Horizon Forbidden West, the next God of War, Gran Turismo 7, we'll continue looking at that. And if PS4 owners want to play that game, then they can. If they want to go play the PS5 version, that game will be there for them. That being said, it's also very important to have showpieces for PS5, hence the development of Returnal and Ratchet that are exclusive to PS5. A lot of interesting pieces out of that, a little bit of a hint of Horizon's release date, that they do have something very concrete in mind, in terms of like holiday, at least as concrete as you want to consider that to be, but that they're not ready to say holiday for sure. Yes, here's our window, here's our date. That gave us a little bit more insight into that, so I really think that one can go either way at this point. If I had to bet money on it, I would say they're gonna get it out by holiday. I mean, we did already see it, and we saw like a good amount, so I feel like that's fairly realistic. But with God of War, pushing it back to sort of make room for that as well. And it is interesting seeing that it's on PS4, mostly because I think a lot of people want to see, like, that game really take advantage of everything the PS5 has to offer. But at the same time, we're still so early into the PS5's existence that it does make sense for a lot of those games to be on both PS5 and PS4. I think it's interesting to think of Returnal and Ratchet, though, as showpieces, and that kind of statement does get me a little bit more excited for Ratchet when it comes out. By the time you listen to this, it'll be later this week, because I think that could be really, really cool. But it is a bummer to not see God of War kind of in that vein. Obviously, I have no problem having, more people can play the game, but I think everyone who has a PS5 at least is really eager to get their money's worth of this and see what this machine can do and really fully get into that next gen. It's like, if you own a PS5, you're next gen ready, but the game releases don't necessarily match that, which I think can be frustrating for some people. Next up for delays, King of Fighters 15 is delayed to 2022. Originally targeting 2021, they've now moved that goalpost to Q1 of 2022, stating, quote, "The development timeline we set out to reach in the beginning has been affected by the ever still rising cases of COVID-19 within Japan. We have made the ultimate decision in the end that the product's quality must come first, and so with that decision comes an altered release window. We sincerely ask for your kind patience and understanding as our development teams continue to work hard on King of Fighters 15 as we draw closer to its release." Personally, not a lot to say on that because I'm not a King of Fighters person, but I did figure it was worth throwing that release date and that window change out there. Quickly highlighting some upcoming events. We're getting Playdate news, which I'm so excited for. If y'all don't know or forgot, the Playdate is that handheld with a little crank. It's super cute. It's bright yellow. I've been obsessed with it since first hearing about it, and I'm so excited for this. So on June 8th, 9 a.m. PT, they'll be doing their first ever video update on the details of Season 1, future games, some surprises, and info on future pre-orders regarding the Playdate. They did put a PS to this and said, Don't worry, pre-orders will not be starting immediately after the video. We'll give you plenty of warning before it's go time. They also added, here are 3 things we're authorized to leak now. 1, the Playdate's final price is officially $179. 2, they've been able to double the internal storage to 4 gigabytes. 3, they've also doubled the number of Season 1 games. So 24 games come free with your Playdate, and more in the update. And I'm most excited about this because 1, I love handhelds, and 2, this thing looks weird as all hell, and I love that. I just think it's so unique and different, and I'm just excited about everything related to this console, so I will definitely be checking that out when the video drops. And the day after that, Battlefield is finally getting revealed on June 9th at 7 a.m. PT. We literally know basically nothing about this game other than what has been leaked, which we never know if those leaks are true or not. So if you're someone who's a fan, check it out. The Battlefield 6 event, which we don't even know if it's Battlefield 6, but the Battlefield 6 event is happening on June 9th, 7 a.m. Moving on to game events, releases, and updates, we have an overwhelming amount of PSVR announcements. Arashi Castles of Sin was revealed. It's very Ghost of Tsushima looking, so if that premise was intriguing to you, this might be something up your alley. Puzzle Bobble 3D Vacation Odyssey, it's Bubble Bobble, but in VR, and honestly, it's a little bit too much to me, but I am slightly intrigued because Bubble Bobble is usually pretty good. We had Wins and Leave, which is a flora builder in a world full of secrets. That's coming out on July 27th. Seems cool, calm, beautiful looking. After the Fall was highlighted once again. This is a game we've seen before, and it was detailing the PSVR co-op shooters world, enemies, and combat. This is a 4-player post-apocalyptic situation in, I think, like 70s or 80s Los Angeles. We saw Fract again. This is that ski, running, climbing, diving, but also shooting game. And Fract is coming out this summer. Wanderer was shown off. This is basically an adventure puzzle game. It has like a time travel mechanic to it. Sniper Elite VR is getting a July 8th release date, and this also comes with a standalone campaign. It has free motion, and there's like a X-ray enemy kill feature. Next up, Alba, a wildlife adventure, is coming to Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch June 9th. This was previously a game that was only on Apple Arcade, and it is an open world adventure game that's focused on exploring the world and conserving the wildlife. It's super cute. I've heard nothing but good things about it. It has that photography element. Again, I've heard nothing but good things. It is fairly easy and like a simple game, but I've heard it's pretty enjoyable to play through. So I am looking forward to that coming to more platforms. The No Man's Sky Prisms update is up now, and it has a whole bunch of stuff. It's kind of wild just how much they've done in this game. Some quick highlights include reflections, fur, flying pets, refractions, rain plus weather, more stars, a bite beat expansion, parallax occlusion mapping, new warp effects, improved photo mode, new particle effects, improved light shafts, DLSS, increased biome detail, and a whole bunch more. I actually did dig into the full patch notes for this, and it's pretty massive, and also this game looks gorgeous, so I'm actually sort of into this, and it makes me want to jump into No Man's Sky, even though that game came out a really long time ago, and I feel like it's not the normal thing that I'd be drawn to, but it just looks really cool. Definitely worth taking a glance at if you were not aware about this update, because it looks pretty significant. The Crysis Remastered Trilogy is coming out this fall. Keep in mind the first game was already remastered, and that's already available, so you will be able to buy these as standalone games if you already own the first game and want the second and third. But if you don't have any of them, you can get the whole thing all together later this fall. And now for the free section. Note Nods Tell Me Why is free in honor of Pride Month. It is free on all platforms. That means Xbox, Windows 10, and Steam from June 1st to June 30th. And as long as you claim that game during that time on your platform of choice, you will have it forever. Tell Me Why was solid. I reviewed it during my time at IGN, and I believe I gave it a 7. It is overall a good game, but I definitely have some problems with it. I am not completely enamored by it, but I think it's solid, and if you like these kind of games, story-driven stuff, decision-driven stuff, it is worth checking out. And finally, for the shut up and take my money section, normally I reserve this for cool items, interesting things, but I do want to highlight 2 really big deals that y'all might not be aware of. The first is that the PlayStation Indies promotion has returned to the PlayStation Store. It runs from now until June 18th. And it is just massive. It includes, I think, 1,340 items from what I'm looking at here. Obviously, some of those might double up on SKUs because of PS4 and PS5. But stuff like 30% off Disco Elysium, 70% off Hellblade, Outlast is now $3.99, down from $19.99. It is a pretty noteworthy sale. So if you're someone that loves indies, if you're someone that plays on PlayStation, please go check out that section. And the last deal I want to highlight is over on itch.io. It is the indie bundle for Palestinian aid. Again, itch.io coming through with the really dope bundles, and this was actually a grassroots bundle by indie devs who just wanted to go and help Palestinians. It is working toward trying to hit a $500,000 goal. It only costs $5 and you get 1,000 items, over 1,000 items, most of them games, some of them being different stuff, like maybe tabletop games or assets for things, stuff like that. And there's some really awesome notable titles here. And those are all the stories for this week. Thank you so much for watching over on YouTube, where you should like, subscribe, and tap the bell. Definitely leave a comment below for what you thought of the episode, and a thank you as well to those listening on podcast services. Please go ahead and leave a review, rate the show. It helps me a whole lot. And as always, a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. You too can join Patreon at patreon.com/Gameonysus, where we have rewards ranging from the $1 tier all the way up to the $25 tier. So go check that out if you're looking for an additional way to support the show other than just listening, subscribing, all the things I listed before. Patreon is a great option and you get some really cool rewards as a result. And as always, I will see y'all here next time. Bye.